In April of 2023, I found a certification program called Mental Health First Aid. As a coach, I felt that it was important for me to learn ways to talk to people, especially if they are experiencing a mental health crisis. Working with people going through trauma could be a daily occurrence, and I wanted to be prepared. During the next couple of months, I will be doing a self care series. I will be talking about the different types of self care and how I use them during my first year of consistent healing practices. Note that your experience may be different and that I was not actively using these techniques at the beginning, but they grew into my life. Self care is all about putting your oxygen mask on first to be able to help others. Self care are the activities and practices that you engage in to help reduce stress and maintain your health and well being. It is meant to refuel you, not deplete you. The areas of self care that can help your overall well being include intellectual, emotional, environmental, physical, spiritual, financial, community, and occupational. Hello, hello. Welcome again to Dear Tay, You Got This. We are continuing along on our self-care series, and this is August self-care. So if you guys don't know, I am going through all of 2023 and the things that I went through during my healing journey. And on top of that, I'm talking about the self-care things that I did, although I did not know that they were self-care at the time. And as I explained in the intro to the self-care series, when I became a mental health first aider, one of the things that they talked about was self-care. And they talked about 8 different areas of self-care. So what I do with each month of 2023 is not only do I tell you guys a little breakdown of like what I did that month and like the changes that I saw within myself, but then I also break down the different self-care things that I did for myself within those months in these buckets so that you guys can kind of see what they look like. And then of course, at the end, we round out all of that and we get you to go into yourself and your schedule and put into a self-care plan, what it is that you should be doing for that week, for that month, to give yourself self-care. I definitely suggest that you do something and plan something in the self-care realm once a week. And I do understand that our lives are busy and sometimes we don't always get to do that. But I would very much suggest that you do that, especially since it is not only good for your mental well-being, but it's also good for your emotional well-being. And in most cases, your physical well-being. So let's go ahead and get started. So in August, August was a very interesting month for me. And it's funny because all of the months were interesting, but August was probably where I started to see a lot of the changes and a lot of myself start to grow in different areas in different ways. And it became very apparent to me the things that I was looking for within relationships, the things I was looking for within my life, and the things I was looking for within my job. At this point, I had been at my job for about 3 months. I definitely started feeling a lot better in regards to my workplace and like my occupational self-care. And I actually talk about that a little bit in August and the August self-care region. But then I also started to really notice more about like my emotional well-being and my emotional self-care and what that looked like. So to get started, in August, the one thing that I did was I created a confidence lead magnet. The confidence lead magnet was basically a short little video about 3 tips on how to create confidence now. And it was a really cool, like really quick little lead magnet. And I thought that was really cool to make for myself. I realized that I was out of alignment with my business goals. So one of the things that I did was I enlisted my best friend to like have a talk with me. She was like, "Hey, like, do you want to have a talk?" And I'm like, "Sure, we can do that." And we basically sat and kind of hashed out what I felt like my life looked like, but also what my business looked like as well. So we talked about that a little bit. And I'll go into that when I talk about community self-care. We talked about, or I basically started really learning about discovering myself and what that actually meant. I think sometimes we feel like it only means like discovering something new. But I think for me, it was really discovering the things that I already have and the skills that I already have. So not really having to start over in the way that some people feel like they have to during their healing process. I also decided that I wanted more quality relationships. And I felt that going into the end of the year, this is very important, especially since I had started showing up more for the people in my life. I was creating friendships and things like that with other people, and how I wanted not only myself to show up, but how I wanted them to show up for me. And I really started to realize that, and also started to vocalize that. And then last but not least, I realized how important my sobriety was to me. So just in case anybody has anything to say about that, I've stopped drinking in 2023, at the beginning of 2023. And when I started that journey, it literally, like I told you guys before, literally was because I was mean. And I knew that it was a coping mechanism. I needed something else. So what I did was I stopped drinking first for 90 days. And then within the first 90 days, I ended up breaking up with my partner probably about 70 days in. And I went ahead and was like, okay, I started my chakra alignment. And then with that, I was like, okay, I really need to stop drinking during this process so that I can really understand myself a little bit more and really get more aligned. Once I did that, by the time I got done with my chakra alignment, it was the middle of May. And by then, half the year was basically almost gone. And I was just like, well, fuck it, let's go the rest of the year. And then in August of 2023, I went to a restaurant, and the server was not paying attention to what they were doing and ended up giving me an alcoholic drink, although I asked for a mocktail. And when I got that mocktail, or when I got what I thought was the mocktail and I started drinking it, I could feel that something was different in my body. And I was just like, does this have alcohol in it? I was like talking to my friend, and she was like, no, it shouldn't. Like, you asked for whatever. And I was like, okay. So I drank the rest of the drink. And then the guy came back, gave me my bill, and on my bill it said that it was a mojito. And I was like, I'm sorry, the drink that you gave me had alcohol in it. And he goes, yeah. And I just busted out crying I was devastated. One of my friends that was there went to bat for me, and we ended up not paying for our bill. She was so mad. She was so livid. And the way that the staff treated us because of that situation was absolutely wild. So we ended up leaving. I haven't been back since, which is even more hilarious. And that happened at this point a year ago. But at that point, I realized how important my sobriety was to me. I did not think that I was going to have this big, like crying emotional fit. But I did have good friends at the time. And I still have good friends who were basically just like, yo, like, you didn't ask for this drink. It's okay. Like, give yourself some grace. Your intention was not to drink. You drank it. Did you drink more? And I was like, no. And they were like, okay. So you didn't really throw away your sobriety. And it was really nice to have people in my life who actually cared about what I was doing, but also understood that this was super important to me. And I felt like I had failed. And they were just like, no, you didn't fail. They failed. You are fine. Don't worry about it. And just go on as if nothing happened. And that's basically what I did. And I tell people all the time, like, even now, with the whole not drinking thing, like now it's been a year and a half. Within a year and a half, I've had maybe like a handful of drinks. And but the thing about that is, like, the one time I had a drink, all of 2023, I didn't drink, except for that one drink. In 2024, I had some leftover wine that I had opened up and used for a shepherd's pie. But after I drank the rest of that, like, I didn't drink anymore after that. So it wasn't like I have, and also I will say this, in that same thing, I wasn't in a place where I was emotionally trying to cover up something when I drink. And I think that's the big difference with me drinking now versus me drinking then. So if I decided that I wanted to drink, that's probably when I would do it, is if I'm out with friends, or if I decided like, hey, this is, one of those things. But for the most part, I mean, I don't need it. I don't buy it unless it's for something for like a meal. And then in that same aspect, if I do end up having a drink, I don't overindulge. So I think in real life, it has to do with moderation, which is a word that I had never actually thought about until I was listening to this other podcast, and they were using that word for somebody else who was drinking quite a bit. And I was like, oh yeah, definitely. So now I realize for myself, like, if I am in a really good space and I decide to have a drink, that's okay. And drinking in moderation is also okay. So I think that that's really great. So the next piece of this is going into my self-care buckets and how that really looked over the course of August. So we're going to go into the community piece, the community self-care. So basically, I went to my best friend and I was talking to her about how things just seemed off. I didn't feel aligned. I felt like things were just not in the way that I needed them to be at that moment. And she was like, oh, she said, well, do you want to like take some time out and actually sit down and talk about it? And I was like, sure. Because she's always been somebody who I can go to with like a general, like any kind of problem, any kind of tape problem, and be like, okay, something's happening. I need to talk about this. And she's like, yep, sure. Let's go ahead and make the time. So we made the time, which has been super cool. And when we made the time, one of the things that she did was she was like, all right, she said, so what's going on? In 2022, I decided that I wanted to be more consistent in my business. And one of the ways that I thought to do that was to grow my TikTok following. Now, at the time, I was making videos, but I didn't feel like they were reaching the audience that I was looking for. So what did I do? I needed to have a catch. So my catch was doing sock videos. And basically what that means is I got on TikTok every morning. I uploaded a video saying, hey, these are my socks for the day, my motivational speech, and then showed everyone my socks. Surprisingly enough, I ended up having over 230 plus pair of socks. And trust me, the collection is still extensive. Now, the 230 pairs grows every single day, every single week, every single month. But I can tell you that one of the places that I ended up getting socks from was Chakra Wonders. When I went on their website, not only did I see that they had socks, but I also saw that they had artwork, mugs, hats, and even some books. It is such a great place to go to, especially if you're looking for something that is going to... What I love about Chakra Wonders is that it's an organization that provides products and accessories to those interested in astrology, metaphysics, and self-healing practices. Their mission is to build a resort-style facility structured around modern and advanced holistic and naturopathic therapies for physical and spiritual healing. When you make a purchase, you are helping them build a holistic sanctuary for wellness and renewal. Go to chakrawonders.com and use coupon code DEARTAY to receive 15% off your purchase. That is chakrawonders.com. Chakra Wonders is an organization that provides products and accessories to those interested in astrology, metaphysics, and self-healing practices. Their mission is to build a resort-style facility structured around modern and advanced holistic and naturopathic therapies for physical and spiritual healing. When you make a purchase, you are helping them build a holistic sanctuary for wellness and renewal. Go to chakrawonders.com and use coupon code DEARTAY to receive 15% off your purchase. That's CHAKRAWONDERS.com. So I sat back and we basically got on did we get on a Zoom call? I think we just got on a phone call. We got on a phone call and we usually spend like an hour or so together when we have conversations anyway. So we spent like an hour or so basically just hashing out all of the things that I was going through at that time. And it really was like looking at my business, realizing that I felt like trauma release wasn't exactly my realm. I felt very out of place in it after doing my summit the year before. And I was just like, something just doesn't feel right with this. But I was like, I still like what I'm doing. I still enjoy what I'm doing. I said, but in reality, like some of the things that I really want to be doing is like writing my book or like rewriting my book, selling my book, doing speeches, things like that. And I was like, I just don't understand like how I need to be able to do that. Like, I don't know what I need to be doing. So we talked a little bit more, and afterwards, after her listening to everything, like she was kind of just like digesting everything we were talking, and she was like, well, it sounds like maybe you should write another book. And I was like, I'm sorry. She was like, well, she was like, you're talking about, the things that you wish that you were doing. If you, could just do one thing, you were talking about writing your book and selling your book and getting your book out there. She was like, why don't you write another book? And I was like, that's not in the cards. I was like, I'll put that down as a possibility. I was like, but that's not necessarily something that I like that I'm ready for at this moment, whatever. She's like, no, she was like, I totally understand that. Like, well, we could just table it or whatever, but it sounds like that's where you want to be, is writing books. And I was like, okay. So I went ahead and put that on the list. And then we talked about some other things. But it was very nice to be able to have somebody to go to be able to bounce ideas off of. And this is the one thing that I talk about when it comes to like having a support system. Your support system is your community. These are the people that you can go to when you're having a problem, when when you need advice on something and you know that this person has some expertise in it, or has dealt with it before. And that's what I go to my community for. And that's what my community goes to everybody else in their community for, is really just for advice and help. Sometimes this is unbiased help. Sometimes it is biased help. People who obviously know about the situation and don't and only agree with everything that you say, which is also fine. I also have moments like that as well. But for the most part, a lot of my friends are very unbiased. They are non-judgmental. And they literally will listen to the situation and then they will actually try to come up with a solution for what is happening. And that happened to be the case within my business scenario, was really understanding what it was that was making me misaligned and understanding that because I didn't know what it actually was, like what was off, being able to give me ideas that allowed me to be able to do that. So when it comes to your community, those are the people you should be able to go to with your problems and be able to talk to about the things that you're going through. And they should be able to help you come up with some solutions. I have really been in a situation where I've had people come to me for advice and then they didn't take it. And I was like, what was the point of me giving you that advice if you weren't going to take it? And then they would come back and say, oh, well, I didn't take your advice, but the same thing's happening again. And I'm like, because you decided not to do anything about it the first time. And I let it be, because at the end of the day, it's not their situation, or it's not my situation, it's their situation. However they decide to deal with it is completely one thing. I will say this, the thing in my community and my little circle is, yes, we always talk to them, or talk to each other, we give each other advice. The difference is these people do not come back and say, oh, well, I didn't do this, I did this, and yeah, I'm still having the same problem. Like, no, that's not a thing that they do. So there's like a big difference between, actually taking somebody's advice, and, having a conversation and then being able to make that change. And within this, I was very grateful for my best friend who came to me and was like, hey, I want to talk to you about this. I want to help you out. And actually gave me some really, really good advice when it came to the way that I wanted my business to be promoted. So I was very, very happy about that. And it actually led me to writing my second book, which I will talk about in the next episode. But that conversation is what led to us talking about what my new book would be about if I was to write a new book, and how that was going to look going forward. So I really thank her a lot for being able to take the time out, have that conversation with me, and help me to start to build on what I had previously built on when it came to writing books that actually help people with their situations. So the next section that I'm going to talk about is occupational self-care. And this is actually really more so about my personal business than it is about where I was working at the time. Because as I said, I had been there for 3 months. The atmosphere was a lot better. My mood was a lot better from being at this place. I did get to talk to a lot more clients, which was cool. But I really was focused on my business at this time, because although I was still working a regular job, I still wanted to build my business and I needed to know what that looked like. And for me, it ended up being outside of the trauma realm because I was pretty much done with like trauma and the marketing to trauma and the business that I had created. And I think it was more so because not only was I burnt out, but I also felt like an imposter in that particular realm. And I was just like, ooh, let me go ahead and see what else is out there, how else I can better manage this energy that I'm putting towards my business. So like I said, when I realized that it was out of alignment, I talked with my best friend about it to figure out what I could possibly do to change that around. But then another thing that I did was I was learning different ways to build and grow my business, which was super important because there had been so many times that I had gone through a coaching program or a workshop or anything like that. Like, let's think about when we're on social media, we see a lot of things for workshops and different kinds of programs all the time. And I am one of those people who is like, yes, I will jump on something, especially if it looks really good and can help me in my particular area. And when it comes to my coaching business, I've always wanted to learn how to grow and scale my business. And the problem was that I was learning to scale a business that I had not actually grown yet. And that was one of the biggest issues that I had. So when I wanted to go back and rethink about what that actually looked like to me, like what this is going to look like on a much bigger scale in general, I had to go back to the beginning because I realized that I already had all the knowledge that I needed to build my business. There were steps that I was trying to avoid that I probably shouldn't have avoided. And I wanted to just hurry up and go. Like I wanted my business to be up and running. And I didn't really put in the time needed for all of the other things to help it grow. And once I realized that, I was like, okay, let's go back and figure out what pieces I still need. So that's basically what I spent August doing. And that's one of the reasons why I ended up creating my confidence lead magnet, because I felt like within the realm of what I do, even when it came to trauma, it was very important for people out there to know that confidence is from within. And really, all you have to do is take action on the things in your life that you want to in order for that confidence to shine through. And I understand that a lot of people, I feel like some people probably think that confidence is about like only extroverted people have confidence. And that's not true. There are a lot of introverted people who also have confidence. They just show it in a different way. Extroverts usually are a little bit more loud and proud about it, which would be me. But a lot of times there are a lot of extroverts who don't have a lot of confidence. They just, like to be vibrant and like to talk to people and just like to be out in the open. And just like there are some introverts who do not have confidence, but that doesn't mean that they don't. Okay. So I really started to learn the different ways that I needed to look at my business and how to build my business. And those are some of the things that I started doing in August, which started to really help me to figure out where I was on that. I'm not in a trauma world anymore, but where I was going to be in my new business as it came to transformation and spiritual growth. So that was actually a very good thing that I actually took a step back, talked with my best friend about what my business looked like and how I wanted to refocus, and then where that was going to go going forward. So that was occupational self-care. All right. Now, last but not least, we're going to talk about emotional self-care. And within emotional self-care, I'm going to talk about two things. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is discovering myself, because as I was saying at the beginning of the month, one of the things that I was doing was definitely learning about myself, discovering myself, things I liked, didn't like, things like that. And really understanding what that looks like. Because it doesn't have to be new things, but it can just be old things that we just didn't pay attention to before. So one of the first things was that I was learning new hobbies. So at the beginning of the year, my focus word was self-fulfillment. So for 2023, was that for? No. Nope. For 2023, it was consistency. So for consistency, one of the things that I was doing was I wanted to really look at being consistent in a lot of the things that I was doing in my life. And one of the things that was like finding new hobbies and making sure that I stuck with them. So one of my hobbies became painting. I started painting a little bit more, which you could see, at least at the beginning of this podcast, I was doing my podcast inspired paintings. I haven't done any for the self-care series because that seems a little I didn't really have much for like what that would look like visually. So I didn't do them for the self-care series, but for other podcast episodes, I will have more paintings. But like I started painting more. One of the things that I also started to do was write a little bit more. I was definitely writing in a journal every day. So one of the things that I realized was that my writing was expanding more, not just the amount that I was writing, but just in general, like what I was writing about was expanding. And then another thing that I was doing when it came to discovering myself was understanding my emotions. And writing really helped with this. And I know that a lot of times we sit back and we're like, well, I would really like to understand my emotions, but what exactly does that mean? So for me, understanding my emotions really looked like when I got upset or when I felt sad, really sitting in that emotion and understanding like why I was sad, and not just being sad and then letting the sadness overtake me. So usually my steps were, it was feeling my emotions and letting those overtake the moment or the situation. So if I was sad or if I was angry, I would actually sit within that anger or that sadness for a little while, and figure out what was really causing it. And usually I could take that back to a situation, or something like that that had happened, and just really understanding within myself, like how that was going to play out within my day to day. Because for most of us, we work for 8 hours a day. And we can't go to work sad because then we have other people in our business and asking us all types of questions and things like that. So what did I do on those days? On those days, yes, I put on a face. I would go to work, I put on a smile. Like if I didn't really feel too up to it, like, I may let the person know, like, I'm not really in the mood. But for the most part, on those days, sometimes I do fake it because sometimes I just don't want to talk about it. And then what I would do is I would come home and then I would sulk or be sad or be mad or whatever it is. But then what I would do is after I did that, I would sit back and I would write in my journal about what happened before I got upset. And then I would sit back and I would think about, okay, I was upset because I came home and my cats knocked over, this actually happened. My cats knocked over all of the plants that were in the windowsill, and I started growing cat grass for them. And I put them in the windowsill. And I guess because they weren't in something heavier or whatever, the cats got up on top of it, and I know it was one of them. The one cat got on top of it and started messing around with it. When I came home, it was all over the floor. So I remember being irritated at this situation. And I was just like, I know that it's because I have to sit back, I have to clean all of this mess up. But at the same time, it's like, am I irritated at something or someone? In this particular situation, I was irritated with myself. I was irritated at the fact that I didn't think that leaving this here for 4 days while I wasn't home wasn't going to be a good idea. So I couldn't actually be upset. But then there are other times where we're upset because somebody said something that seemed out of pocket to us. And then we have to go back and we have to say, okay, um, did we get upset because of this person, or because of what they said or how they said it? And then usually you just break down it from there. Okay, it was how they said it. In what situations previously have I had this happen where I felt the same way? And is it that I'm angry, or is it that I feel like somebody just demeaned my position, or because somebody was talking down to me, or because whatever reason it is, like what are the reasons? So it really took me some time to be able to take an emotion and then break it down into these little subsections to really understand why something bothered me. For the most part, I can do that on a pretty consistent basis. Sometimes I can do it in the moment, like, oh, I understand why this actually bothers me or why this situation riled me up. I can totally understand that. There are other times where I am just way too passionate for my own good, and I just fly off the handle because I'm ridiculous. And I know this about myself. And then what I do is I sit back and I go, I probably shouldn't have said that. I probably shouldn't have did this. I probably could have handled this in a different way. Um, but I am also still one of those, I am also one of those people who are like, I said what I said. And I'm sorry for how I said it, not what I said. Because usually what I said is the actions that I'm going to take or whatever it is. And I'm not taking that part back, but I am taking back the overzealousness, the raised decibels, the anger that seemed to come out of that I seem to have projected. I am taking that back because that's not what I meant. So it really, by August, I really started to understand what my emotions were, why I was having those emotions, and why I felt the way that I felt. And even now, I have those same things where there are some things that I still have that I'm still holding on to. That at this moment, I realize that I'm probably not going to let that go for a little while, and I'm kind of just letting that marinate and really trying to figure that out before I move forward into anything else. But until then, I have a strong boundary about certain things that are just cannot be, won't happen. Because if they do X, Y, Z, like I have a plan for those. Um, but until I can figure out what it is within that situation, that I know that I can control and that really is going to make me feel a little bit better in that situation. Until then, I'm going to have these strong boundaries. And I understand that a lot of people do that too. And I think that over time, those things do lessen because I will say that from January until March, I felt like I had some boundaries, but not really. I had my breakup in March, and then from March until like the end of July, I really was like focused on what that actually looked like. Like, okay, these are my boundaries, and I was really stringent on my boundaries, which in hindsight could have pushed a lot of people away, but also it kept those around who were like, okay, I understand that you're dealing with stuff. You want this hard boundary. Let's do it. And then over time, even to now, some of those boundaries have softened, but there are a lot of those that still haven't for one reason or another. And as always, we're still working on those things. I still hold myself accountable when I get a little passionate, if you will, about it. But I will say that I don't allow that to hold me back from other things that I'm doing in my life. So in hindsight, we're doing really, really good. And then the last thing is in emotional self-care is learning how to release energies that don't serve you. So this has a lot to do with attraction and the things that you bring to you. So in August, and this actually has to do with me realizing how important my sobriety was by getting this drink by accident. So on this particular day, I had gotten into an argument with one of my sisters, and it really put me down for the day. And I knew why it put me down, but it was also like, I felt like my point was this, she felt like her point was that. So I was just like, whatever, like it is what it is. I'm not going to sit up here and argue with you. That's just not what I'm going to do. So I just like let it go, but not really. And then what ended up happening was later on that same day, one of the things that I would do to help alleviate a lot of this tension and, numb myself to the emotions that I had is drink. But what I was doing was I was actually going out with a group of friends, or a couple of my friends, and we were just gonna go. They were gonna have drinks. I was gonna have a mocktail. We were gonna eat some tacos. Like it was gonna be great. But what ended up happening was I actually received an alcoholic beverage. Now, a lot of times in this, like we could sit up here and say, like, yes, no, it was the waiter's fault. It definitely was the waiter's fault. We could say all of these things. But what I do understand about energies, and the way that we attract things to us is that I very much, I think in that day of all of this happening, I very much was at a point where I was just like, I really need a drink. And I've been good for the last 8 months. And this is just something that I really just can't get over. And I think that's what attracted that drink to me. Now, what will I say about, are there situations where you can definitely release these energies so that that doesn't happen? Absolutely. However, on this particular day, I had went to work. The argument, I believe, happened in the morning, maybe, or happened throughout the day. And it was over text message, which, by the way, is so stupid. And then after that, I had already planned on going out with friends. So I didn't have time from when I got off work to go to this dinner to actually decompress. So I went straight to this dinner and still had this energy of like whatever it is, what it is. But also, I wanted to hang out with my friends and have a good time. So there wasn't time for me to release those energies. Now, what I will say is that there are many ways to release energies that don't serve you. And oftentimes it does take a little bit more than a couple of minutes or a couple of hours. So the other day, I was actually going to a meeting. A friend of mine was hosting a meeting and I was going to it. And while I was doing that, before I got out of my car, because I had had it hadn't been a rough day, but it had been a long day. And what I did was I just sat down and I did a recording. And basically the recording was just me like, hey, let's take a moment, let's breathe. And it was a 10-minute video because it didn't need to be that long. And I don't even think the breathing exercise even lasted that long, but it was like a short meditation on releasing any energy that did not serve you. Because what I wanted to do was I wanted to go into this meeting and be my happy self, but also I didn't want whatever it was that was bothering me for the day literally take hold of me during this meeting. So I took just 5 minutes, and you could do this in, you can do this. You can take 1 minute, you can take 2 minutes to do this. You can take 5 minutes to do it. Doesn't matter. However long that you need, I want you to just take that time to sit back, close your eyes, breathe deeply. And during that time of breathing, imagine that every exhale that you take, that there is that yucky guck feeling of that bad negative energy is coming out of your body. All right. Whether it be through your mouth or through your nose, doesn't matter. All right. You're going to take a deep breath in and you're going to let it go. All right. Now, the cool thing is with these exercises, you can always like alter them in some way. You can do exactly what I did just now, where you're just like, you breathe in and then you let it go. But just imagine that it's like that putrid, yucky, negative energy coming out of your mouth. You can breathe in and then you can just like let it out real quickly. One of the things that I liked last year, I went to a little seminar and it was a workshop. And what they did was they had us like stand up and then they had us like yell like ha, ha, ha. And you can do that. And I actually had some very powerful like release doing that too. So you just want to remember that there are multiple ways to release energy. Some people scream into pillows. I've actually sat in my car and screamed. I remember one time in college, I went outside of my dorm and I just like screamed out into the air because I was so upset about something. I don't even, at this point, that was damn near 20 years now. So I have no idea what the reasoning was. I don't remember. But I remember doing that. And just feeling really nice afterwards. And understand that it's okay that when you are doing these release techniques, that if tears come up, that is normal. If you just feel like at the end, like you're totally drained and you just cannot go on, do anything else the rest of the day, take a nap. Or just go ahead and like shut off your phone and just have the evening to yourself. I've had many, 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 many nights like that. But I just want you to remember that there are ways that you can release this energy from you so that you're not attracting these other things. And yes, it's going to be hard at first, releasing these energies, because some of us, like sometimes when I get upset, I just want to be mad. And oftentimes in the situation that I'm in, depending on the situation that I'm in, am I at work? Am I at home? Am I going on a trip? Am I like, what am I doing? Which will alter how I can release those energies. So it's very good to have multiple different ways of doing that. And I think what I'm going to do, kind of like with the other video, I'm going to do like another little, like do a little mini video or something regarding releasing energies, because I feel like that will be very important. So that is all that I have today for August self-care. Uh, excuse me. Again, we've done community, occupational, and emotional. So when it comes to these three sections, what I want you to do is I just want you to pick one today to work on. Do you need to contact your friends and have a dinner date? Tonight, as I'm recording this, a friend of mine, I seen her, she just started law school, which is super great, but she was like, I just got through with midterms, like everything's been stressful, it's been a hard time, whatever, whatever. I was like, do you need drinks? She was like, yes, I would love drinks. So this is part of my community for the week. This is a planned community meet. Again, you want to make sure that you are planning your self-care. When it comes to occupational self-care, is there something at your job that you haven't dealt with or haven't completed and probably need to complete? Do you feel like you need to put like something up in your workspace to make it more tolerable? Anything like that. Like, what is it that you can change about your workspace, your work ethic, anything like that that's going to help bring your demeanor back to a center and help you feel fulfilled? And then the same thing with emotional. What is something that you can do emotionally that's going to help you this week? No, most people do not plan a crying session, but I have seen where some people have. So I guess you could do that. If you really just wanted to like be on your pillow for just a couple of minutes because you wanted to get out release some extra energy from your arms, you're more than welcome to do that. You just want to think of something that's going to help you to really move that stagnant energy along so that you can continue on with the day that you have planned. All right. So once you do that, take some action. As always, I'd love to hear about anything that you decide to do for your self-care. I do understand that not everybody has the time to do these things, but in reality, you want to make the time. A lot of the things that I talked about today don't take a whole lot, maybe just a couple of minutes of your time to actually getting those things together and then doing them. Even with the releasing of energies, that can be as little as 1 minute. Hell, you can even do it for 30 seconds, doesn't matter. But just take that time because you will notice how much better you feel once you've done those. All right. Now, before we go, of course, as always, we have our Trinity. So we're going to talk about something that I'm grateful for, something that I want to brag about, and something that I desire. So the first thing, one of the things that I am grateful for is I'm grateful for living in my purpose. I think it's taken me a long time to get to here, understanding what I'm supposed to be doing with my life and how I'm supposed to be helping those around me. I understand that I cannot help everyone, and that is okay. But I know that I am intended to help those who hear me, who understand what I'm saying, who understand that they need to also make a change in their life. And in what way that looks like can be however they feel. They just have to take the action to do so. So I'm super excited and grateful that I get to be part of that squad. I get to be part of that teaching. And that makes me really happy and in all honesty, just super grateful to be able to be that voice for the people who at this moment are looking at how their life is and what it is that they can change and don't know what that is. But when they listen to my podcast, when they hear me speak, they feel inspired to do something. And that is what I'm grateful for today. A brag. This comes with a story time. But my brag is that I look a lot younger than I am. I think that's like hands down the biggest brag of all time, right? So my friend is getting married in a few weeks, and she is in her early 30s. Mind you, I'm not that much older than them. Probably, I think like the youngest is 30, so maybe 7 years. I think the second oldest in the group next to me was like 33. So it's not like I'm like that much older than them, and by no means. But we were all out. We went candle making for the bride, and that was actually really cool. And while we're sitting there, we're like doing stuff and listening to music and like just being great. And then I don't know how this came up, but I was like, yeah, I'm 37. I'll be 38 in November. And you would think that everybody's head was on a swivel because literally they all looked at me and one of the girls was like, yeah, yeah, right. Like, no, that's not, no. And I was like, no, like really. And she was like, I don't believe you. And she was like, dead ass. She was dead ass. Like, no, there's no way that you're 37. So honestly, like I just want to brag on that today. Like I look way younger than what I actually look like, and I'm okay with that. For the most part, I get like at this point I've been getting like late 20s, which is cool. I'm not upset about it. But I know that I'm 37. Like I said, in like a month or so, what is that? In like a month and like a week, I will be 38. So yeah, the years are coming. Like I'm almost 40 and I don't even look like it. So I have a question out there for those people. Like, what does 40 look like? Like, we don't even know anymore. I've lived through a lot. It is what it is. But yeah, no, I just thought that was a pretty cool brag. So you're welcome. I'll give you guys that. And then something that I desire. I was as always, I sit back and I think about these before I do my podcasts. And this one, actually, I was like, you know what? This is actually a really good desire to have something that when I do my podcast and when I'm talking to you all, something that I wish for everyone around me. So, my desire is that everyone around me, including myself, continue to grow into a better version of themselves. I don't know what that looks like for you. I can't tell you what that better version of you looks like. All I can tell you is that each and every one of us want to be better than who we were yesterday. And whether we like to believe that or not, that's neither here nor there. I believe that every person wants to be a better version of themselves than they were yesterday. And I will say that every day I strive to be a better person than I was yesterday, whatever that yesterday looked like, right? And that's what I desire for everyone around me is that we continue to grow, that we continue to want to learn, we continue to want to build, whether it be in our relationships, in our career, just in life in general. Like, do you want to be a better auntie? Do you want to be a better mom? Do you want to be a better partner? Do you want to be a better coworker? Like, whatever it is, I really want people to look at themselves and go, yes, I want to be better than who I was yesterday. And yesterday could literally be yesterday, or it could be a year ago. I can honestly say that at this moment, I can definitely say that a better version of myself than I was a year ago. And that has a lot to do with the work that I've put in and just the different things that I've done in my life that allow me to be a better version, that allow me to grow in the ways that I want to. So I honestly desire that for everybody. It's one of the reasons why I created this podcast. That's one of the reasons why I talk about transformation and growth everywhere I go. It's because I truly believe that we can all be a better version of ourselves if we really want it. And I do believe that a lot of us want that. So I hope that you take that and you run with it and decide what version of yourself do you want to be better than today. Go out there, take action on some self-care, get it, get it, get it. All of the things. All right. If you or anyone you know, like you've listened to this podcast and you're like, oh, this really hit a spot, definitely share this with somebody. Because that helps me grow, which would be great. And I appreciate and thank you beforehand. And if you want to share a story of your growth, or if you want to share your Trinity, please give me a call at 330-552-7234, or you can send me an email at info@desirablephoenix.com. I'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you for listening to Dear Tay, You Got This. If you liked this podcast episode and found it helpful, please subscribe today and share this episode with a friend. If you have any questions, comments, wins, or would like to be featured on this podcast, please call or text 330-552-7234 or email info@desirablephoenix.com. See you next week.